What's going on, everybody? The world's a better place because you are here to join us. My name is Matt Brown, and I am the host of the Productive Conversations podcast. And let's recap week 10 of the college football season. Week 10 of the college football season is in the books, as we do every single late Monday, early Sunday. Sorry, every late Sunday, early Monday. We will talk about the biggest stories in college football, talk about the biggest games. My name is Matt Brown, and I will take the reins today. No Ryan. So explain real quick what happened, but he is okay. He's just excuse me, he's just down south because something happened, but I'll explain in a second. But before I tell you that, I just remind you to like and subscribe to the Productive Conversations podcast on all podcasting platforms and YouTube. Don't forget to check out exclusive content regarding the show across all social media platforms. We're on Instagram at Productive Conversations Podcast, X and Twitter at Proud Couple Pod, on TikTok at Productive Conversations, and Facebook at Productive Conversations. And as always, don't you forget, check out our presenting sponsor, Magic Mind. Magic Mind, the world's first productivity shop where you do more and stress less. And if you're like me, covering and handling so many things in life, from work to podcast to social life to all that, and you just need a little kick without caffeine, Magic Mind is the way to go. You take your Magic Mind green tea shot before the day begins, and before you know, you are more focused throughout the day. Your brain is less foggy, and you overall have a better feel for the day ahead. And if you're like me, who's been using it for a couple years now, you see the major significant changes in his life. That's for the better. Why don't you do what I did? Go to magicmind.com/PCJune for 48% off your first subscription or 20% off your first one-time purchase. That's magicmind.com/PCJune for 48 off for 48 off for 48 off your first prescription or for 48% off your first subscription or 20% off your first one-time purchase. That's magicmind.com/PCJune for 48% off your first subscription or 20% off your first one-time purchase. Magic Mind, reclaim your brain. All right, here's the situation with my great buddy Ryan. All right, no Ryan for the college football. First time this year. Very rare that he misses. Also just available. We also have a week 9 recap of the NFL season. Shoot, week 9 in the NFL season is in the books. So Ryan is at a wedding in Texas, right? Goes to the wedding yesterday on Saturday, enjoys it for I assume for the most part. Happy marriage to whoever got married in his family. Congratulations. And I guess what happened was his mother's rental car broke down. And Ryan on this Sunday is about to see the whole state of Texas. So yeah, so I guess they're in the I don't know where they are. I think the wedding was in the Austin, Texas area. And the wedding was in Wimberley, Texas. And I guess his mother's rental car broke down. So he has to drive from Wimbledon, Texas to Dallas, Texas on a Sunday. That's 3 hours. And then he has to go from Dallas to Houston for another 2. So I just said that, and he'll probably miss his flight back to Washington D.C. where he lives, and where we would record on Sunday nights, in between the 4 p.m. the end of the 4 p.m. game and the start of the 8 p.m. game. So Ryan will be spending his Sunday driving through, I guess this would be Eastern Texas. And he'll manage. He's a good guy. So that's why I know Ryan for college football. And I did want to talk especially about his Vanderbilt that he likes and how they lost. But we will see Ryan next week. And God be with him through all that driving in the desert he's about to do. But he's all good. That's the only reason why. He's just stuck in Texas due to a bad rental car. All right. But we miss him, and we'll see him next week. And with that, let me talk with you about the biggest college football stories. Like our top 25 poll that was just updated. And also, you can see you're actually watching this. I'm actually recording this in the daytime after daylight savings. So it's going to get dark about 4 or 5 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock now. But that's why I'm able to just do this a little early because of his moving around before the 1 p.m. games. in the NFL. So that's what we're going to do. So let's knock this out. Let's talk about the top 25 poll. Here's our significant changes to the top 25 poll for week 11, going into week 11. University of Miami goes from 10 to 20 after an overtime loss to an unranked, now ranked SMU. Major blow to their playoff aspirations. That's probably donezo after a horrible Carson Beck performance. Georgia Tech, a lot of people were impressed throughout the year. A small powerhouse in this rise of these new schools in the SEC that's been making a difference. Georgia Tech goes from 8 to 16 after suffering their first loss against an unranked North Carolina State team. That sucks. Vanderbilt, not too much of a drop. They go from 9 to 13 after a tough overtime loss to Texas. And Tennessee and Cincinnati are out of the top 15. They were 15 and 17 respectively. They lost Oklahoma and Utah, and they go down. The biggest climbs. Are we seeing a return of Texas? They jumped 9 spots. They went from 20 to number 11 after defeating a top 10 ranked Vanderbilt team with an impressive, very impressive Arch Manning performance. Oklahoma goes up 4 spots with a big road win against Tennessee. And Utah and USC make solid moves. USC goes from 23 to 17. Utah goes from 24 to 19 after their impressive victories. And SMU goes to 23. Iowa stays at 24, and mostly the rest stay the same. And well, on the most we stay the same. Ohio State, they had a big second half win over Penn State to stay at number 1. Indiana remains undefeated after dominating Maryland. Texas A&M and Alabama hold steady after a bye week. Georgia risking it with a big road win over Florida. They still steady. Oregon, Ole Miss, BYU, Notre Dame all hold their own as well, with Ole Miss staying steady after defeating South Carolina this week. BYU moved up after a win, and they're now ranked at 8th. Notre Dame gets a win. They go up a spot because of their win over Boston College. Texas Tech moves up after a win. Those stay the top 10 right there. Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, Ole Miss, BYU, Notre Dame, and Texas Tech. Soon we are going to get the poll for the college football playoff as we head into November. We will have an idea of where these teams are going. Obviously, a lot of big significant losses this year. Few top 10 teams remain undefeated, and we'll see how this all unfolds and what makes the big difference. So they will stay excited through there. So why don't we talk about the significant games in terms of placement, right? In terms of importance and where this goes. I want to first get into the SMU knocking out Miami. SMU secured the upset over number 10th ranked Miami with a big 26-20 overtime victory. That was secured with a 1-yard overtime run by TJ Harden to end the game. On Miami's first possession in overtime, Carson Beck was intercepted by Ahmad Moses just short of the goal line, giving SMU the chance to win. Carson Beck, with his impulse decisions that have been killing this squad throughout the year in their significant losses, that strikes again, probably shoots down his draft stock, and he was not kind to his team in his post-game press conference. SMU improves to 6-3 overall, 4-1 in the ACC. And Miami falls to 6-2. They're only 2-2 in the ACC, and their playoff hopes are definitely damaged. But give credit with the big interception by Moses at a crucial moment in the game, and for SMU, and they just stayed resilient throughout. They stay off having a conference loss, and they have a big statement victory. But Miami, what killed them is their mistakes in crunch time, and they just cannot beat teams on the road. They just cannot beat ranked teams on the road this year for some reason. SMU has a good chance to be more confident in the ACC. Miami, I think, has I think the only way Miami is going to win the ACC is just win win their conference, and see if they can hold face and get significant wins and quality wins to be eligible for the ACC championship. We're gonna have to see what happens there. All right, we had the USC Trojans. They rally past Nebraska. USC wins by a score of 21-17. USC ranked 23rd overall, pulled away with the fourth quarter win by running back King Miller, where he ran for a total of 129 yards, and scored the big go-ahead touchdown. Despite the poor passing performance, USC's quarterback just went 9 for 23 with 135 yards, one of the worst quarterback performances in years. But Nebraska also struggled. They have struggled. They and continue to struggle against top 25 teams. Cornhuskers, maybe this was a chance that they could have been ranked for the first time since 2016, but couldn't hold on to the victory, couldn't take advantage of the horrible offense USC was providing. And ultimately, USC just switched, weren't able to get a balanced attack on offense. They just switched to their running game. And that ultimately was the big difference in the game and helped run the clock out and give them the victory. But UFC, big win, is very positive. Go rise up the rankings. Nebraska, if they want to climb, if they want to get back into the rankings for the first time in almost 10 years, will beat top 10 opponents. We'll see if they can ultimately provide that. We got the University of Indiana continuing to stay undefeated as they get a big win over Maryland. Fernando Mendoza threw a touchdown and ran in for one as him and Maryland just spanked him. Indiana wins by a score of 55-10. Hoosiers were dominant on the ground, racking 300 rushing yards, and they controlled the line in the scrimmage. They are now 8-0, and it's going to be hard to stop this Indiana team. They have a very balanced offense, strong running game, a quarterback who's a Heisman favorite, could be a first-round pick, and who's also mobile. And their defense is dominant as well, only giving up 10 points this week against Maryland. And they look like a serious contender in the Big Ten. And I think they should stay in the national stage, continue to press people, and see what Fernando Mendoza can do to be the top quarterback in this class. So far, he's looking like he would be a great viable option. Louisville shows resilience over Virginia Tech. They win by a score of 28-16. Louisville's trailed as much as 16-17.5, but scored 3 unanswered touchdowns in the second half victory. Give credit to the running back K'Wan Brown, who stepped up late, 94 yards and 2 touchdowns after Isaac Brown, who had 130 yards already, left the game with a leg injury. But Louisville outgained Virginia Tech 235-99 in their second half and 365-240 in the game in overall. But what leads the resilience? But give credit, staying big win on the road, and the backup stepping up. Louisville's road victory bolsters the ACC standings and shows that that they can win these games, and they really need to grind it out. And let's end it with what should be the most significant game of the weekend. A significant game over the weekend. I want to talk about I want to talk about Texas and Vanderbilt. The big statement victory of Texas, as they were once the number 1 team in the country. Bad losses, questioning if Arch Manning has it or not. And ever since their significant losses, especially the loss to Florida, it seems Texas took it hard and have improved ever since. Texas with a big 34-31 victory over Vanderbilt. Arch Manning returned from a concussion, and he threw 328 yards and threw 3 touchdowns against Vanderbilt. Texas jumped from a 24-3 lead in the second. Texas jumped behind to a 24-3 lead in the second quarter from these explosive plays by Arch. A big 75-yard touchdown of Ryan Wingo obviously excited people. Vanderbilt nearly came back, though, against one of the best defenses in the country. He scored 21 unanswered fourth quarter points, including a big 67-yard touchdown and a dramatic fourth and 19 play that ran for 89 yards. Sorry, I should say, including a 67-yard touch. Vanderbilt nearly came back, scoring 21 unanswered fourth quarter points, including a 67-yard touchdown and a dramatic fourth and 19, 89-yard drive. And Texas escaped, though, by the failed onside kick to Vanderbilt, and that sealed the deal. I think Vanderbilt had the momentum to win this game, right? And despite Arch Manning being very impressive, the big hole, the thing to notice, was the defense giving up 31 points against what is an impressive Vanderbilt offense. But this team has been able to prevent teams that score less than 14 points, big top 10 teams. But ultimately, I think their vulnerability was exposed. But Texas showed their top level offense and depth, but they need to be better at closing games and preventing big comebacks. And Vanderbilt's fight was impressive, but Texas held on. Texas keeps its playoff hopes alive. They can prove they have proven that they can win big games, but they need to be better at closing games ultimately. But that's what I had, the big stories for college football week 10. See you back for next week, week 11. Me and Ryan back, assuming he's not still in Texas, but I'm sure he's okay, and I look forward to it. Don't forget a week 9 recap of the NFL season, also available on all podcast platforms and YouTube. And then we are back on Tuesday recapping the weekend behind us. We'll talk about Halloween weekend, daylight savings, and what happened, what was trending over the past weekend for the tweet cap, and then we'll be back on Friday to recap the biggest trending stories for the week ahead. All the love, everybody. See you throughout the week, and have a great and wonderful day. Peace.